If you've heard about the BCG Matrix and you'd like to know more about it, you're in luck. Why? Because that's exactly what we're going to discuss in today's class. My name is Olumide, and today we're going to look at the BCG Matrix. If you find this class to be helpful, please make sure that you click on that subscribe button and you turn on notifications so that you can get access to more and more of my content. So like I said, we're going to talk about the BCG Matrix. BCG is a word that actually stands for a company that is very well known. It's known as the Boston Consulting Group. And in the 1960s, they came up with this matrix, which is now referred to as the BCG matrix or the Boston Consulting Group matrix, or simply the Boston matrix. And very simply, it's a matrix that helps you as an organization to know what products you should be spending money on. So how does it really work? Let's look at that into some more detail. There are two key variables for the BCG matrix. The first of them is the relative market share. The relative market share. And that essentially implies how much of the market does your company control compared to the largest competitor. Compared to the competition, how much of the market is your company controlling? And that part, that is the relative market share part, is plotted on the x-axis. So there are two key things that I think you need to note here. First of all, we're not saying market share, we're rather saying relative market share. So it is relative, it is as compared to something, which in this case is really the competition. The second thing is that when you're plotting this on the x-axis, it is a little strange because typically you would plot and you would start something from 0 and then it would increase. So it goes from the lower number to the higher number, right? But in this case, you actually plot and there are two key values. You start with high and then it goes to low. So it's like the x-axis going the other way around. You're starting with high and then you go on to low. Please note that. The second variable in the matrix is market growth. So how quickly is the market for that product growing? And you see that part is plotted on the y-axis. Okay, so you have relative market share on the x-axis, and like I mentioned, that starts with high and then low. And on the y-axis, you have market growth, but that one follows the normal order. So you have low on the lower part of the y-axis and high on the higher part of the y-axis. So essentially, based on the plotting of the x and the y-axis, you're going to have four categories that make up the BCG matrix. The one that we're going to start with is the category that has been labeled dog. I know that's a strange name. Well, in this case, I'm not sure of why BCG decided to use names like that, but those names surely describe the scenarios in very unique ways. So there is that category called dog. And what does dog really imply? You see, dog is what you have when you're in a situation of low relative market share, but also low market growth. So you're in a market that isn't really growing, but also your product in that market does not have a high market share. It has a low relative market share. What it implies is that product is more or less struggling to exist in that market, and that market in itself doesn't seem to have so much potential. So what is the solution to that? Many people, many consultants would recommend that you take off such products, you eliminate such products from your offerings, okay? And ultimately, that might be the solution. I would say, though, that you might want to exercise just a little patience. You might want to look at the dynamics of the market a little more, because there is a possibility, yes, small possibility, but there is a possibility that you might be able to transition that product into a different segment of the matrix. Okay, but generally, the advice would be that if you have a product that is in the dog category, then you hack it off. For products in the dog category, if you put in some expenses, it is possible to get that product moving. But then the ultimate question would be, would it even be worth it? Because if you spend so much and you get the product moving, the market itself is already saturated and the market itself is not really growing. So ultimately, is it worth it? And like I said, the easy answer for most organizations would be no. So they'll just take it off. The next category is the one known as question mark. And it is denoted, as you would expect, with a question mark. So what's the meaning of the question mark? It's a question. It is saying, what is the answer? Nobody knows. Nobody knows for sure about this particular product. Nobody is absolutely certain. Why is nobody sure? Because you see, there is potential, but while there is potential, there are also problems. And so it is such that the product may or may not kick off at the end of the day. So this is how it is. There is market growth. There is actually high market growth, but then the product has a low relative market share. So the market growth is high. The product is playing in a market that is growing. And that is why there is potential. But the product itself has low market share. So it implies that to get it to have bigger market share, you are most likely going to need to spend a lot of money as an organization to get things going, to get things rolling. And that is where the problem is. There are no absolute guarantees. It is possible to spend, to do all of the spending, and put in all of the work, and the product might for some reason still not gain the kind of market share that you want it to have. So that is why there's a question mark. Nothing is absolutely guaranteed. That said, for products in this category, the goal would be to try as much as possible to push them into the next category. Why? Because the question mark implies that there is promise. So maybe it is worth giving a shot, but that is for the management of that company to decide. And then the category that you want most of your products to be in is the category known as stars. What is a star? A star is something that is shining. It shines at night. Okay? So looking at the product now, it means that a star product is going to be one that is shining and the whole world can see, right? Well, to put it in a better way, in the context of this matrix, it's a product that has high relative market share, and it is also enjoying high market growth. So it's in a sector that is enjoying high market growth, but the product itself also has high relative market share. So that is a beautiful place to be. That said, that kind of product is also going to receive a significant amount of investment. Why? Because you want to sustain the momentum. You want to make sure that you keep up the pace and that you outperform competition. And so it's still going to take a lot of investment. That kind of product has lots of opportunity, lots of potential, and potentially lots of competitors as well, because that is something that a lot of other organizations are going to be looking at, because they too can see the potential. Okay, so companies generally want stars. And then there is the final category. That is the one that has high relative market share but has low growth rate. And that is what is known as the cash cow. So you must have heard about cash cows before. In Nigeria, when we talk about a person being a cash cow, it will typically refer to maybe some politician who has a lot of stolen money and is just dispensing the money to his friends and family, okay? Or some sugar daddy. But the point is that the cash cow is making a lot of money or has had access to a lot of money and doesn't really have a purpose for that money. Okay, now in the BCG Matrix, the cash cow product is a product that has high market share. So the product is generally speaking doing very fine, but the growth rate is low. So what that implies is even though the product is doing very well, the product cannot really be said to have a lot of potential anymore. It's not, potential talks about the future capabilities, the future possibilities for something. A cash cow product cannot really be said to have that much of future possibilities anymore because it has kind of reached its peak or it is very close to its peak. So the idea now is to take some of the money from the cash cow and put it into other categories, particularly categories like the stars, because those are the ones that are still very competitive. They have high growth, high relative market share. So the stars are the ones that you want to send the money into. And then you want to send part of that money also to the question mark category because you're trying to convert the question mark products into star products as well. Okay, but it is really nice for an organization to have a number of cash cow products. Why? Because those can help to sustain the organization. They can help to keep things growing. They are the mature products that, yes, they don't have so much of a future, but they can help to sustain the cash flow and to keep the organization running and profitable while it invests into the upcoming lines that are going to become the new cash cows at some point. So that is the BCG matrix. If you loved that explanation, make sure that you leave a comment, make sure that you leave a like, and make sure that you subscribe to my channel.